Okay, let's take a look at inverse functions. If you don't know what functions are, watch my other video explaining functions, because that'll greatly help with this video, because this video is just going to focus on inverse functions. So functions, as aforementioned, is just basically fx is equal to something, for example 3x. But if you don't know that, just watch my previous video. Inverse functions is basically the opposite of functions. So if I briefly explain what it is, if, say, f of x is equal to x plus 5, then f to the power of negative 1x, this is called the inverse. This minus sign specifically shows us that it's the inverse. This will have to be x minus 5. Why is that so? If we have a number, say x is 2 plus 5, it's going to give us 7, right? We're going to go from, it's like you're starting from here. So if your number is 7 minus 5 is going to give us x, which is 2. So you're basically doing the opposite of your function. That's what inverse functions are. The opposite of your original function. Another example, f of x is equal to 3x minus 1. In a second, we'll formularize this so that you can do it without having to just think about it. F minus 1x shows us that it's an inverse function. It's just going to be 3x plus 1. Sorry. It's not 3x plus 1. You'll be inclined to say that. But notice, this is 3 times x plus 1. So it's going to be x plus 1. It's multiplied by 3. The opposite of multiplication is division. So x plus 1 divided by 3. Another example, f of x is equal to root x plus 3. What would the inverse function of this be? Well, the opposite of addition is minus 3. Addition of rooting is squaring, right? So minus 3 is for sure. We're going to have our original number x minus 3, and then we're going to square that number in its entirety because we've squared it here. So minus 3 squared. But this sort of thinking process gets really confusing. So the formula for this, it's not really a formula, it's just a method. We can change f of x to just be y equals root x plus 3. Then what we do is we make x the subject of the equation. So y minus 3 is equal to root x. How do we get rid of the root x? We square both sides. So y minus 3 squared is equal to x. Then the last step that many people tend to forget is you write down your function that you're writing, and you change the y to an x. X minus 3 squared. And notice we have the same answer. Let's look at this with another example. Let's say if f of x, so obviously the formula is way better because thinking it in your brain can get really confusing at times. F of x, even if it's really simple, I would still use this formula method. X over 5 plus 1. And the question will ask you, find the inverse of that function. Remember, we change this into just y is going to equal x over 5 plus 1. Then all we have to do is make x the subject. How do we do that? We're going to multiply both sides by 5. It's going to become 5y is equal to x plus 5. We've multiplied everything by the number 5. Then we can minus 5 on both sides to become 5y minus 5 is equal to x. And that's it. 5y minus 5. But there's one more thing. We can factorize this out. 5y minus 1, right? And the last step to do is we change it. We write our answer in our proper function form. Is equal to 5x minus 1. Because remember, it's not an y, it's going to be an x. Okay. One more harder example. If f of x is equal to, let's say, x plus 1 over x minus 2, find the inverse function of that function. How do we do that? We're going to change this to a y. X plus 1, x minus 2. Let's make x the subject of this. What will we do? We're going to multiply both sides by x minus 2 to get rid of the fraction. So y multiplied by x minus 2 is going to equal x plus 1. Well, then what do? We want to get rid of this, what am I saying? We want to try to get x on one side, right? First, let's factorize this out. X, if I can write this a bit nicer, xy minus 2y going to equal x plus 1, right? We're going to have to move x to one side. Well, think about this for just a second. We can factorize this to be, actually no, we can't factorize it that way. So xy, yeah, let's move x to one side. xy minus x is equal to 2y plus 1. Then we can factorize the x on one side. X brackets y minus 1 is equal to 2y plus 1. You notice what I'm doing? Xy minus x, right? We have this bracket now. So all we have to do is 2y plus 1 divided by y minus 1. And that's it. Then we just write our final answer in a function form. 2x plus 1. Remember to change the y to an x. You'll lose marks if you don't. It's going to be a final answer. If I can just go through briefly what I just did. We had our we had this, right? When we moved the x, when you multiply the denominator to get rid of the fraction. And we factorized it out. Then we noticed we can move the 2y to the other side and move the x to one side, so we can group all the x's in one side. So we have xy minus x. We can factorize that by, because x appears in both times, so x brackets y minus 1 is equal to 2y plus 1. I can divide both sides by this number to give us x is equal to 2y plus 1 over y minus 1. That's basically it. Inverse functions can get a lot tougher though. Let's see if I can find a bit of a tougher question. Yes, I found one. Okay. Question is going to be f of x is equal to x over x plus 3. Find the inverse of x. Arrange it in y, just like equations, and we're going to have to group all the x's on one side of the equation, right? What will we do? Let's multiply the x plus 3 on both sides to get rid of the denominator. That's going to equal x. Let's try to group x's on one side. That's going to be quite important. First, let's factorize this out though. xy plus 3y is going to equal x. We can group the x's on one side by minusing x on both sides and minusing 3y on both sides. So now the y's are on one side, the x's are on one side, but we do still have a y here. But we can still factorize this out. Remember, we have two double x's. So x multiplied by y minus 1, right? xy minus x is going to equal minus 3y. You can probably see where I'm going. We can divide by y minus 1 on both sides over y minus 1. And all we have to do is write it in a proper function form. F minus 1x, the inverse function, is going to equal minus 3x over x minus 1. That's pretty much it. Actually, yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching this video. I hope this explains inverse functions, and see you guys in the next one.